r/no sleep. Posted by you/violets02. I used to have a twin sister. Part 1. I used to have a twin sister. I used to live in the quiet little town of Salome, a seaside community in the middle of nowhere, with a population of around 25,000. At least, it was when we were children, my sister and I, before the current mayor was elected. It seemed like an eternity ago. The Salome of my childhood was a close-knit community where everybody knew each other. There were rich people and poor people, but most of us were somewhere in between. We made a living out of our seafood. We traded shrimp, crabs, and clams, alongside a variety of fish, with bigger communities and cities not too far away from us. We had several seafood groceries and restaurants. We were not a tourist hotbed though, not back then. We had only one crummy old inn for people traveling to farther destinations. Otherwise, nobody outside would willingly spend a night within our borders, unless they were a visiting relative or friend. It was all because of the water, and its deadly unpredictability. Every so often, rain or shine, weekday or weekend, a life would be claimed by a whirlpool. It could suck in anybody from a wandering toddler to two fishermen trying to make a living. And then the typhoons. We were taught to swim, not because it was fun to play at the shores, but because it was dangerous to do so. My sister Nina and I would still play on the shores when the sun was high up and classes were over, despite our parents' warnings. All of us children had that tendency to be naughty, until another death would come along and we would shudder at the sight of the sea for several weeks before dipping our toes into it again. I was the one who always dipped first. Nina was the good, obedient one, unless she was with me. Then, giggling, we'd splash water at each other and run home dripping wet, ready to get an earful. One particular afternoon shortly after our 9th birthday, we tried sneaking into our house through the back door. Mother and father were arguing in loud voices. We seized the chance to tiptoe upstairs to our bedroom unnoticed, but our parents caught us anyway. Nina, I told you not to swim after classes, Mother said sharply. We didn't swim, I said. We just decided to wade in a little bit, Nina giggled beside me. Go upstairs now and clean yourselves, Mother continued to scold us. My goodness, what will I do with you two? You never listen. Still giggling, Nina and I ran up the stairs together. Nina and I were best friends, despite our totally contrasting personalities. I was 12 minutes older, but she was far more mature, more goal-oriented. She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. I didn't want to grow up. Nina excelled in school, topping all of our classes except for PE. I was the star of our volleyball team. I had average grades in the rest of my subjects, but whenever my grades started to slip, my sister would help me. Nina was the type of girl who had a few close, loyal friends, while I had a coterie of followers around me any given day. I was loud and extroverted, often scolded by teachers for forgetting my indoor voice. Nina spent some of her spare time reading in the library or volunteering to help the teachers look after the kindergarteners. We were such a small school that we didn't have enough teachers for each grade. It was normal for some teachers to teach more than one grade. Nina was a quiet presence, sweet and gentle, well liked by adults. Meanwhile, some of my neighbors' parents considered me a sort of bad influence, even though I never forced anybody to get into trouble with me. I was just curious and thirsty for adventure. The more people prevented me from doing something, the more I wanted to do it. That afternoon by the shore turned out to be the last, and I didn't even know it. Neither of us did. Later on, we both went downstairs to eat dinner. It was painfully silent, with Mother and Father refusing to look at each other, until our father finally broke the silence with, "Girls, we have something important to tell you." I looked at Nina, and Nina looked at me. Mother and Father had been fighting a lot lately. There was a new mall in the capital city with a huge grocery store, meaning that Father was earning less than he used to, and Mother was only working part-time in the local college. Last month, they had forgotten to pay the electricity bill on time. Nowadays, all they seemed to do was raise their voices at each other. At night, Nina and I would talk to each other in our beds. We promised that no matter what, we'd be together. Even if we had to switch homes every now and then. Our town's in a bad shape, Father continued. But with the new mayor, things are going to change soon. His eyes were looking into the distance, wet with what seemed like tears, but his gaze was hard and almost angry. Though other things have to go. Mother closed her eyes and sighed deeply. Please know that we love you both, no matter what happens, she said. Tomorrow night, Father and I will join the town meeting with all of the adults in Salome. Melanie will look after you. Melanie was our favorite babysitter. You're not getting a divorce? Asked Nina. Mother and Father chuckled. No, and hopefully we won't have to, Father told us. Before we slept, our parents kissed us both. Good night, Mother said. Take care, Father added. They reassured us that they loved us, no matter what. Looking back, it seemed odd how they were affectionate to us all of a sudden that night, but it made complete sense. Melanie made sure that we went through no shenanigans the whole day, which Nina spent reading and studying while I played a video game. I wanted to go outside, but there was thunder alongside heavy, continuous rain. Finally, right before our bedtime, our parents arrived home, their faces weary and distraught. Nina and I ran to greet them. They paid Melanie before she left. Then they looked at us. We don't have to do this, Mother said, her voice shaking. We could take the girls and run away. Father shook his head firmly. They will find her, no matter what we do. It's part of the deal. He turned to me. Dina, you may go to bed. We'd like to speak to your sister. What? Nina asked worriedly. Did I do something wrong? Mother began to sob. Then she gathered herself and fixed a glare on me. Dina, please go upstairs now. What did we then? My mouth clamped shut. I had never seen my mother in such a state. I had never seen my father so troubled. I looked apologetically at my twin before hurrying to the bedroom we shared. I think I remember hearing either my mother or father saying, Nina, we love you and we are so sorry. But I am not sure if it was true or wishful thinking. The next morning, the sun was up and the sky was clear. Nina's bed was empty, but I didn't find that strange because she would sometimes wake up early to study, even during weekends. I yawned, fixed my bed, and went downstairs. Mother and father were awake and sitting together on the long couch, his arm around her shoulder. They looked tired, empty, and helpless. Something was wrong. Good morning? I said, more of a question than a greeting. They looked at me with weak smiles. Good morning, Dina, father said. Mother tried to suppress her sobbing. Morning. Are you okay, Mommy? I asked. Where's Nina? My parents looked helplessly at each other before turning to me. Sit down, Dina, father said, gesturing to the small couch across them. I obeyed. Listen carefully. You have to understand why your sister went away. She what? She was chosen. Father could not look me in the eye. It was not our choice. What the mayor says goes. He says that it will all be worth it, that our town will even see unimaginable glories. It's a huge sacrifice, Mother sobbed. But it's for the greater good. They wrote the names of children in this town who are between the ages of 6 and 10, Father went on, and your sister's name was the one that was picked. She will be the hero of Salome. I was still confused. How? You will know when you're old enough, Father said. Maybe when you're 12. Father, I don't understand. What was she picked for? Mother let out a loud sob and ran upstairs to the room she shared with Father. Father held me closer to him and hissed, You're going to make your mother even more upset the more you talk about your sister. But you can't visit her. You won't be able to visit her until you're old enough. You have to trust us, Dina. Everything will be fine. He released me. Now, the next time you ask me about your sister, you will get no response. You won't get a response from anybody else in this town either. That's part of the deal. He kept the deal. He had not uttered Nina's name that morning. I would never hear him, or Mother for that matter, say her name again. My grief was inconsumable. I tried to ask the adults in the neighborhood, but they would not give me a truthful response. Worse, they would tell my parents, who would send me up to my room or ground me. I'd stay in my half-empty bedroom, watching kids run down the street through the window, their clothes and hair wet from splashing in the seawater. At night, I cried myself to sleep. School was the same. Everybody wondered where Nina was at first, until the principal told us during assembly time that Nina was picked for a scholarship to a special unnamed private boarding school, where she was being trained to find solutions for environmental problems. Most of us kids thought that was cool. I didn't. I wanted to scream at my parents for not telling me the truth sooner. Then the principal gave us an email that we could use to write to Nina. After my 10th unanswered email, I decided to cut off all contact with my twin sister. I turned 10. It was my first birthday alone, and my parents threw a big, outdoor party where I enjoyed playing beach volleyball with my friends. We ate lots of seafood, a large vanilla and strawberry cake, and different flavors of ice cream. I got my first iPhone. Then we swam, because an entire year had passed without typhoons and whirlpools. Even adults were celebrating. I realized that I didn't need my twin sister to have fun. It was great to have a birthday that you didn't have to share. Years passed. I learned not to talk about Nina, and I began to miss her less and less. No one talked about her either, not to us children, at least. I began to adjust to my new life. When I was 12, my parents sold the other bed in my room. I had more space for a PlayStation and some gym equipment. Once in a while, my parents and I would go to the city or abroad for vacation. It was not uncommon now that business in Salome was thriving. By the time I was 14, Salome had developed into an unrecognizable place. A new mall was built near our house, as well as several resort hotels. There were more visitors, tourists, and tourist spots. Our current mayor had done the impossible, we all thought. Gone were the days of typhoons and whirlpools, as if a snap of magic had taken them all away. Maybe it was climate change. Maybe it was whatever my sister was studying and contributing her research to. Either way, we became even more of a tourist hotbed because of our grand, colorful festivals. Once a year, for one whole week around my birthday, Salome would celebrate the rebirth of our town with food prepared by our citizens, beauty pageants and talent competitions, and lots of prizes and games. Our mayor would begin and end each festival with a speech, and we'd all give a round of applause. I was 18 when I learned the truth. After my first semester in college, I decided to spend the term break home. I wanted to surprise my parents, and so I took a bus to the nearest stop to Salome, and then rode a taxi the rest of the way. It was dark and drizzling, but I wasn't worried. Typhoons never hit Salome anymore. I learned that the driver had moved in fairly recently, 5 years ago, to be exact. He had a wife, a son, and a new baby daughter, whose picture he showed me from his phone when the light was red. I tried to listen patiently, although I really wanted some peace and quiet. Salome is a perfect blend of everything, he went on. There's access to good schools and lots of activities, but you'll still enjoy the peace of provincial life. It's almost a great place to raise a kid. Yes, I agreed. The mayor did such a great job, didn't he? I hope he gets elected again. The driver frowned. If he does, we're moving. My older son's turning 6 soon. Oh, I said. You're planning to send him to an elementary school in the inner cities? He shook his head. He might be picked. You know what happens to the ones who get picked? I froze. The last one they picked was a 9-year-old girl, he said with a sigh. I never saw her myself, but you might have known her. Assuming she's still alive, she's probably around your age. What do you mean if she's alive? He pointed out the window. It's been raining a lot lately. If she's not gone, she almost is. They'll need to pick a new one, he sighed again. That poor girl. In that basement all day and night, while the adults lined up to do what they wanted to her. Everyone but her 18 and above. Even men. Where is she? I was screaming. Where is this basement? Take me there. Take me there at once or you'll be sorry. Before he could answer, the rain started pouring in tremendous windy gusts. Thunder rumbled overhead, the first I heard in town in 9 years. Part 2. Miss, I don't know where the basement is. I honestly don't. Then, how come you know it exists? I shrieked. You better not be kidding me. I'm not in the mood for jokes right now. However, I knew he was not joking either. I could see his hands trembling on the steering wheel. Outside, the streets were starting to flood. My friends would sometimes visit. Your friends? I seethed. Your friends? How can you remain friends with them after what they've done? Everybody does it, miss, it's part of the deal. Including you? We were heading towards the main part of the town now. Our speed was picking up and there were cars on both the right and left lanes around us. I was, however, tempted to open the door and run out. But I needed to get answers first. No, he said. I swear. I couldn't do that. Not to a helpless little child. But you did nothing. My voice was low. You did nothing. That's even worse. You stayed friends with them, and you did nothing. I was crying. I could imagine the men in our town, my teachers and my friends' fathers, the fishermen who waved hi at me as I biked past them, my volleyball coach, and I could hardly picture them entering a dark basement at night, laughing eagerly and maliciously, then zipping up their pants when they were done. Then, they would go home to kiss their wives and daughters and prepare themselves for work the following morning. Living normal lives without consequences. I didn't want to believe it. But it all made sense. The way the entire town collectively forgot about Nina. How we were scolded every time we asked about her. I remembered several times when the community college kids, the 18-year-olds to be exact, mentioned something about an initiation during their first town meeting attendance. They would quickly change the topic whenever we younger ones asked them. I wanted to throw up. How could all these people look at me without feeling the tiniest prick in their conscience? Nina and I, after all, were twins. Are twins. The mayor has a magic touch, the taxi driver continued. He works like a medium to the gods. All he has to do is make an offering. Years of prosperity, years without calamities and casualties, all for a tiny price. That little girl is just one person among 25,000. We break the deal, we all suffer. I was crying so hard, I could barely express my anger at his terrible logic. The rules are clear. It has to be a child. Someone old enough to remember a life of love, someone young enough to be helpless and vulnerable. That poor little 9-year-old was shackled in the basement with a small window for light, according to a friend of mine who was once assigned to feed her. They fed her twice a day, once in the morning and once at night, and bathed her thrice a week. She wasn't allowed to wear any clothes, they said. The women beat her, and the men raped her. Under no circumstances should any visitor be kind to her, or the calamities would strike again. My twin sister. Humiliated and tortured while I scored volleyball trophies for this sick, cruel, evil town, while I had huge, happy beachside birthday parties that were all unshared, and while I went on trips to Japan, New York, and London with my parents, who knew everything and agreed to it. If all this were true, I would never forgive them. Don't cry, miss. A lot of the young people who learn the truth cry at first, but they get over it. And if it cheers you up here, the light went red again, and he actually looked at me. There's a rumor that someone is secretly being kind to her. An imposter. That's why it's been raining lately. When you're ready enough, you might even start wishing that the imposter gets caught soon. I was half listening to him, half thinking. Can you ask your friend where this basement is? I asked calmly. Maybe if I see the truth for myself, then maybe the acceptance process would be quicker. Inside, I was thinking about how to gather all the adults in an emergency town meeting and setting the place on fire. Wait, let's find somewhere I can call him. We parked at a gasoline station where he called up his friend, who gave directions to the town plaza, which was right by the mayor's residence and office. The plaza was also where we had our famous yearly festivals that attracted tourists from all over the country. I was fighting to hold myself together. Every year, while everybody was having fun, somewhere nearby, Nina was slowly dying. By the way, miss, the taxi driver said before he dropped me off the mayor's office, I've been told that there are newly installed cameras in the hallway. If you dare to be kind to the girl, they'll know. They've already got a list of suspects. Don't worry. I just want to look, I muttered. I paid the bastard and slammed the door, braving the rain as I crossed the short path to the mayor's office. Thunder roared overhead again. The rain grew stronger. I closed my eyes briefly. Nina, if this means that you're suffering less, then please, let it rain harder. Oh hello, Dina, said a familiar voice. To my horror, the building's new secretary was my old babysitter, Melanie. I froze on the spot. She knew? Of course, she knew. They all did. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft and concerned. It's cold outside. Here, I'll get you some tea. She left her desk, gesturing at one of the soft chairs against the wall, in front of an old TV with a VCD set. Plastered on the walls above the seat were posters full of infographics on the mayor's different projects, scholarships, senior citizen care, early childhood education, everything that had made us the envy of nearby towns. Again, I tried not to scream. Melanie sat by me as I tried to calm myself with the steaming styrofoam cup. The rain continued to pour outside. You look sad, Melanie said, frowning. I hope I'm not prodding too much, but is college? Melanie, I cut in. What happened to my sister? Her frown went deeper. I'm 18, I said. Please let me know. Melanie looked past me and pointed to a camera hanging from the ceiling. You know, they can hear everything we say. I just want the truth, I sobbed. Is Nina still alive? Yes, Melanie said. Then let me see her. You can't, Melanie said firmly. That's another part of the deal. No direct family member can visit the basement. Not parents, not siblings. Grandparents and cousins can after careful deliberation, however. I put the styrofoam cup on the ledge of a window, returned to my seat, and started sobbing. Melanie reached over, but I slapped her hand away before she could pretend to comfort me. Is she all right? A man in a security guard's uniform walked towards us. She's Dina, the one who won the volleyball scholarship, remember? Said Melanie. The twin sister of our sacrifice. She just learned the truth. Cheer up, the guard said, taking the seat to my other side. I'm pretty sure your life became more amazing after the deal, right? It's a good sacrifice. Good? How could it be good? Through all those years, my sister was being raped. Thunder rumbled again. It could be you, he snapped. Remind yourself of that. You're lucky. We all are, Except for the sacrifice. Besides, be honest, you're not here to take her place, are you? I sobbed, and hated myself. Not that it's possible, he said. You're way past the target age. I think you should go home. I'll drive her, Melanie volunteered. It's getting late. Your parents might be worried about you. My parents. I never wanted to face them again. There was a ring from the doorbell. A familiar-looking young man, maybe 1 or 2 years older than me, strode in. He was handsome, with smooth features and gentle eyes. But I knew what he was here for and I wanted to destroy him for it. Oh, Sir James, why do you insist on coming after office hours? Melanie said, rushing to the desk. Sign your name, please. All right, the young man said, and he took the pen. I realized that I recognized the boy James, the mayor's only son. He spent high school with his mother at the capital but would visit the town during festivals. All of the girls and gay kids had a crush on him. I had one friend who came out bisexual because of him. He exuded cool energy and natural charisma, and there were rumors that he was being groomed to follow his dad in politics. He looked at me and smiled. Hi, Dina, he said. It's late. Why is she here? Why are you here? I would have said, but my mouth hung open. Why are you here? Melanie asked, laughing. I want to have some action alone, he went on. Now, are the whips ready? You barely used them last time, Melanie said smilingly, giving him a key. That was the last time, chuckled James. I'll give her a good thrashing, and more, because it's been raining a lot lately and God, I'm sopping wet. I hate the cold. He nodded at the guard, who opened another door at the end of the room. I caught a glimpse of a long white hallway with flickering lights before the door was shut. Melanie's eyes narrowed. You can't do anything about the sacrifice, Dina. But I will get her out of here, mark my words. And you will pay. All of you. Melanie's laugh was light but sharp, a thing of pure evil. Try. Just try. You may not be part of the deal, Dina. But we'll find a way to silence you. And the secret will die with you before you even notice. Just like all the others who dared. Her phone rang, and she gave it to me. We're nearly there, Father said on the other end. Dina, your mother and I are so disappointed in you. Part 3. There was no choice but to sit and wait for my parents. It was raining too hard outside, and I didn't have enough money for a taxi. Besides, where else could I go? As much as I hated everything about my hometown, I needed to stay. I needed to stay to save my sister and destroy everyone else in the process. Including our parents. The sound of a car's engine drew closer, and the next thing I knew, my parents were in the office with me and Melanie. They scarcely looked at me as I sat on one of the seats, still sobbing my heart out. But they hugged Melanie, asked her how she was, and thanked her for the cookies she sent them for their anniversary while I was away in college. Stupid, commonplace, ordinary topics, between 3 people who were completely complicit in the torture of a young girl in a basement underneath us. I wanted to barf. Finally, Mom turned to me. What made you come home, Dina? She asked. We were planning to take you on a trip to Dubai for the term break. You could have waited at your dorm. Yes, Dad went on. You practically wasted your money on that long commute, he chuckled lightheartedly. I stared at them with my mouth hung open. Deep inside, I wanted to give them an earful and then disown them as my parents. Or worse. But since I needed to save Nina first, I had to be smart. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. I know the truth, I said slowly. I know that right now, as we speak, Nina's downstairs and being raped by the mayor's son. James is here? Mother said, turning to Melanie. She shook her head. That boy. Why is he always so late? Melanie chuckled. He wants more privacy, I guess. Let him. It's been raining a lot lately and we still haven't found that imposter. Expect a lot of families with young children to move out of Salome if this situation doesn't improve, Father muttered. Thunder rumbled again, bringing with it even stronger rain. How, I said, fighting to keep my voice level, are you able to stomach all this? Nina's your daughter. Do you want to take her place? Father said sharply. I couldn't reply. No one wants to take her place, Father said firmly. But that's part of the deal. What's done is done. What are you going to do? Rescue her? She's too far gone by this point to trust any semblance of kindness. And even if you dare, you'll be putting even more people in danger, Thunder roared again. See? I wish they'd get that imposter now. Let's just go home, Dina, Mother said, in a softer tone. We'll make you understand. Mom, Dad, how could I? How could you? Nina's your daughter. You raised her, you made sure she was healthy and loved for 9 years. And then to just agree to a deal like that. It wasn't easy, snapped father. Don't act like it is. It was our greatest act of selflessness to offer your sister to the town. What? Fun fact, Dina, Melanie chimed in. Remember how your parents left you alone with me the night after your sister disappeared? They were part of a special initiation rite as well. It was our first and last time in the basement, Mother said, narrating it like it was a recipe instead of a crime against humanity. The mayor was the first one to use your sister. Of course, he had to do the honors. He had to force me to pin her down while your father watched. It was the worst moment of my life at that time. But then it was over. Afterwards, all my feelings for that child were gone. And you didn't attack them? I turned to father. My father, who was always so wary about the boys I dated in high school and made sure I went straight home after nights out. I was forced to do something even worse, father said, flinching from my gaze. He looked away. I felt bile rising up my throat and ran outside, to the nearby garden, where I threw up my entire dinner. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my mother. It was her usual, familiar soft and loving face, except I knew that I could never see her the same way again. Or father. They didn't love Nina, and so they didn't love me. It was that easy. I could have been the one being tortured in the basement. Nina could have been the one living the wonderful life with our parents and the rest of Salome. It was just luck that made all the difference between both our lives. Let's go home, Dina, Mother said. I had no choice but to follow her. At home, I headed straight upstairs without talking to my parents. I cried silently in the bathroom. I kept crying as I sat on my bed, looking at the space in my room with the bench press and the PlayStation where my sister's bed used to be. Then I turned off the lights and cried myself to sleep, feeling helpless, hoping against hope to wake up in my dorm and realize that this was just some cruel nightmare. But then I woke up, and it was sunny. My parents left a message saying that they went ahead to work. They left breakfast for me on the table. Blueberry waffles. Nina's favorite as well as mine. I bathed, changed into my favorite jeans and a light-colored blouse. I slipped on my sandals, locked the door behind me, and started walking away. I had no idea where to go, where to start. But I knew that I had to gather answers. I decided to go back to the plaza. If there was one place to get the latest gossip of the town, besides the local barber shops and nighttime pubs, the plaza was it. And maybe, just maybe, the mayor was around. I could ask him a thing or two. Or worse, I thought. Then I shook my head. Be patient, Dina. Destruction requires patience. I reached the plaza. There was no place to hang out outside the mayor's office. The benches were all occupied by people taking morning strolls with their babies and pets. There were bikers and skaters. A bunch of fishermen sat and shared fruits on a long table. Whenever someone said hi to me, or waved at me, I forced myself to smile back. At night, these were the very same monsters who hurt my sister. I finally found an empty beach near the sprawling gardens with the playground and the outdoor exercising gym. There was also something I hadn't seen before, a ground fountain, with a row of waterspouts that shone in different colors as their paths crossed each other in beautiful arcs. Everything was rhythmic. I watched as the children dodged the waterspouts, laughing and playing, splashing water at each other while their parents shook their heads affectionately nearby. I sighed and closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temples. Those poor children. They had no clue, just as we all once had no clue. Dina, called yet another familiar voice. I reluctantly lifted my head. Not far away from me was a girl named Lucy, who was Nina's childhood best friend and my seatmate in our last year of high school. The last time I checked, she had gotten a scholarship in my rival university, far away from Salome, and was taking journalism. Lucy was walking her Pomeranian, who kept biting at her leash. Lucy laughed, scooping up the dog, and made her way to me. I smiled at her and gave her a space on the bench. If there was someone who could poke around the darkest corners of the town, it's Lucy. Although I wondered if she already knew. Why didn't you message me that you're home? She asked. Then again, I only arrived by bus last night.
So did I said.
By the way, Lou, do you know why typhoons no longer hit our town? What do you mean? She chuckled. There was a big one just last night. So, I thought. She's clueless. Remember the freshmen in our community college who said they went through some sort of initiation rite? I asked. Or are you close to someone in our batch who stayed behind to study college here? My close friends either took gap years or got volleyball scholarships to bigger universities in the country like I did. A few, Lucy replied. My ex, Greg, now works part-time as a security guard just over there. She pointed at the plaza. Wait, you were in a relationship with Greg? I asked. Greg and Lucy were notorious frenemies in high school, and he flirted with her when he was not teasing her. Yeah. Long-distance relationships are a myth. But we're civil. Anyway, he's taking agriculture and fishery at the community college. Why? Here for a project? Not really, I said. Also about Greg? When does he work? Lucy laughed. Greg's incapable of commitment, Dina. But if you want to see him, he works from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. at the mayor's office building every Monday and Wednesday. Today's Monday, I realized. Lou, I need to see Greg. It's not worth it, girl. He'll never change. She cracked up even harder. Lucy, I'm serious. I lowered my voice. Between us, Lucy's dog tried to scratch me, but Lucy set her down on the grass and tied the leash to the armrest of the bench. Serious about what? Lucy asked. Nina's in trouble, I said. I need to find out how to rescue her. People are doing terrible things to her on a nightly basis. People we know. I suddenly straightened up, looking around us in the park, hoping no one heard. But isn't Nina in that special boarding school? Lucy asked. Then again, I always thought that it was weird that she never replied to our letters. Look, most of the kids in our batch are 18 years old. Which means that those who stayed behind might have taken the same initiation rite the older kids used to talk about before quickly changing the topic, I said. Lucy, this is going to sound unbelievable. But you can ask our parents now. You can ask anybody older than us. Now that we're 18, they'll respond. Are you okay, Dina? You're trembling. No, I'm not okay. I clenched my fists, then relaxed them. Then I told her everything. I don't believe you, she whispered when I was done. Look, I didn't want to believe it either, I said. But my parents confirmed it. You could ask them. Like I said, you could ask anyone. My dad. Lucy stopped halfway, then she covered her mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God, no. He couldn't have. She looked at me with a horrified look in her eyes. Dina, I don't want to believe it. It's not true. Tell me, it isn't. He might not be one of them, for all we know. Except that I think he is. Because Mom used to yell at him for staying out after work. And when I asked her if she suspected that Dad was cheating on her, Lucy shuddered. I hope I'm wrong. But alright, Dina. I get it. You can't go to that basement, but I can. I'll ask Greg. Then let me know, okay? Let me know how it goes. Tell Nina that I love her and that I'll rescue her. I will. I'll tell her. Lucy's voice trailed off. She was looking behind me. I turned around and saw James. Part 4. We waited, holding our breaths. James stopped, checked his phone, adjusted his left ear pod, and continued jogging. After he was past us, we released our breaths. I suddenly have an idea, Lucy whispered. What if we make this go viral? As in, online? I asked. And then I wondered how come this terrible secret about my sister's whereabouts never reached the internet. In this day and age, after all, anything viral could make or destroy a person. Or several people. Or an entire town. We're studying journalism ethics in college, and we made several social experiments with hidden cameras, Lucy went on. I can bring one to the basement. You'll be able to watch things real time from your phone or your laptop. I didn't know if I had the stomach to witness my sister's suffering as it unfolded. But if it was difficult for me to watch, it was a million times more difficult for her to feel. I swallowed and nodded. Let's go to my house, Lucy, I said. We'll plan things where no one can hear us. Lucy nodded and we walked out of the plaza. We tried to keep cool. Our eyes were inevitably drawn to two boys trying to fly a kite, young boys, maybe 9 or 10, certainly siblings with their similar looking facial features and toothy smiles. For all we knew, they were twins. I turned away and blinked back my tears. We left Lucy's dog at her home with her mom before going to my home. We went upstairs to my room. Lucy lagged behind me, saying, "It's weird. I remember entering your house a few times for school projects, but only now am I realizing that all the pictures here are of you and your family after Nina disappeared." After Nina was chosen, I corrected. I opened the door to my room, and we went in. I locked the door behind us. "Don't worry," I said, dropping my voice to a whisper. "I still have proof that she existed." I kept a special old shoebox under my bed. It was decorated in pink gift wrapping paper and faded stickers, collected throughout years. Inside was a jumble of Christmas cards, love letters, Polaroid photos of me and my friends, souvenirs from trips abroad, and a photo of me and Nina, taken on our last birthday together. I couldn't bear to look at it. As soon as I found it, I gave it to Lucy, whose eyes gathered tears. "We were so little," she whispered. "Please tell me that this isn't true. I don't want it to be true." I was tempted by her disbelief. I was tempted to forget. But then I turned to my right, to the window by my bed and the sunlight spilling its warm radiance everywhere, to the sounds of cars and people on the street, clueless or compliant people, since there was no in-between, and I knew then that I had nothing to lose. I promised myself, and Nina, that not long after this, our town would pay. Mark my words. Night came, and I stayed in front of my laptop. My bedroom door was locked. I had refused to eat dinner with my parents, saying that I had gone out with friends earlier and that I was full. I waited for Lucy's camera to connect to my network. When it did, I hit screen record and watched. Lucy's camera was clipped to her headband. People would think that it was just a simple butterfly design, but it was actually a small, thumb-sized camera with built-in speakers. In other words, I could see everything she saw. Right now, she was walking down the hallway with flickering lights. Greg was with her. "So, who told you about the sacrifice?" Greg's voice was as nonchalant as my parents had been, as Melanie's and everybody else's, and I wanted to punch him in the face for it. But since I had to play dumb, I kept quiet. "You know, they told every batch above ours, but since we're her age and her former playmates, they decided that it was best for us to eventually discover the deal on our own. Except for us at Salome Community College, of course." "It's a long story," Lucy chuckled. "What a fantastic actress," I thought. It was almost as if she didn't cry in my room a few hours ago. "I just want to take a look, Greg. I'm just curious." Greg paused and took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket. He handed it to her. "I don't smoke." "It's not for smoking, Lou. It's for starting small." They had reached the end of the hallway. I could see a dim staircase, by no means narrow, leading to yet another door about 5.5 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It had a small square window, but I could see nothing inside. Nothing but darkness. "What do you mean?" Lucy asked. "Try just burning her with one." He lit a cigarette and placed it in her fingers. "Trust me, the power is so addictive, all your guilt and pity will soon be gone." Lucy hesitated. "And don't think of her as Nina, anymore. She's no longer that. She's the sacrifice." He returned the pack of cigarettes inside his pocket and took out a ring of keys. He unlocked the door and switched on the lights. Lucy entered, and gasped. I watched. I fought my hardest not to look away. The room was surprisingly well lit. There was a disgusting looking toilet bowl in one corner and an equally grimy shower beside it. Not far away was a bed with sets of handcuffs all over it. It had no quilt, no blanket or pillows. On its foot was a wooden chest, upon which was a thick leather belt and a collar. Lucy turned to the other corner of the room, and I nearly jumped in surprise. On the other corner was a girl. She didn't look older than 13 or 14. She was naked. Her right ankle was chained to a heavy-looking black ball, rendering her unable to move much. She was picking on her long hair, which fell tangled over her shoulders. She squinted at the light. She was barely more than skin and bones, and her body was covered in a plethora of bruises, burns, and cuts. She sat crouched against the wall with her knees covering her breasts. She flinched when Greg came near her, and whimpered. No, I thought. That's not Nina. That couldn't be my sister. Nina? Lucy crouched down, until she was eye level to the girl. Remember me, Nina? It's Lucy. Your best friend in 4th grade, remember? That was when the girl looked at her. Those eyes. Wide and full of pain and fear, and familiarity. I recognized those eyes anywhere. They looked just like mine. Except, they weren't. Greg kicked her on the side, and she fell face down on the dirty cement floor. I could see hand-shaped bruises and lash marks all over her back, legs, and buttocks, and I was stifling my sobs before I knew it. Burn her there, on her leg. Greg pointed to a small patch of her skin that wasn't blemished. Although us guys really liked burning her, he burst into laughter. I could hear Lucy breathing heavily. No, I can't. I can't. Her sister was here last night. Did she tell you about the deal? Nina turned her head to them, in one painfully slow movement. Dina? Greg slapped her face. I had my hands pressed to my mouth, trying not to scream. If I burn her, would you stop asking stupid questions? Snapped Lucy. Go ahead. Prove us that you're not a plant. I'm not. I could see Lucy's hands, one placed on Nina's leg, the other still holding the cigarette. Go on. It was taking forever. I held my breath, whispering even though I knew there was no way Lucy could hear me, "Don't do it. Don't be one of them." "It's gotten cold," Lucy finally said, dropping the cigarette on the floor. "I'll need another one." She was looking at Greg, who went on to take another cigarette from the pack. At that very moment, the camera view went blurry, and then I could see Lucy standing in front of Greg, and my sister almost blocking them. Mission accomplished. Lucy had placed the hidden camera, the butterfly design, near the corner of the room. Far enough to be inconspicuous. Near enough to capture everything. "I can't take this, Greg," Lucy said. "Give me some time, okay? Surely Dina has told you about the imposter. Prove us that you're not in cahoots with them." My mom told me about the imposter, right after she told me about the deal. I didn't want to believe it at first. But that's the reason she gave for her and Dad's divorce. Not surprising. A lot of dads come here, as well as angry moms. But then they go home and all is well again. "It wasn't for my parents," muttered Lucy. "I get it, though. I can take it out on Nina some other time. She's the sacrifice. No need to use her name anymore." "Whatever. I'm going." Greg didn't follow her. I wish I didn't see everything that happened next. James was the last. He came an hour after our favorite baker's turn, which came after that of my father's old barber back when he had enough hair to cut. Before him were a prominent businessman and two men wearing uniforms of a big shipping company. They unlocked my sister from her ankle chain, threw her on the bed, did things I wanted to kill and slowly torture them for. My sister didn't even struggle, not once. She cried, she whimpered helplessly, but she knew that she couldn't fight back. She didn't even try. She could have been anyone. We could have been her. She could have been me. My shirt was soaked in tears. The door opened and James entered with a sadistic smile as he slapped a thick belt against his palm. Greg closed the door behind him. "Enjoy," he said partingly. From the camera in the corner, I watched as James dropped the belt to the floor. Then, slowly, he walked towards the bed where my sister still lay chained, bloodied, and sobbing. Soon, he was standing in front of her. I could not see his face, just his silhouette. I wondered if I should make this go viral or simply burn everyone in town in one go, children included. But that would make me just like them, if I decided to punish the innocent for the guilty. There had to be a way to kill the adults, slowly and violently, without hurting anybody who had never hurt Nina. I continued watching James. He didn't unzip his pants, didn't strike Nina across the face. Instead, he unchained her. His hand gently brushed her cheek. He sat at the foot of her bed, still fully clothed. And Nina wrapped her arms around him, sobbing even harder. "I'm sorry I couldn't sneak a piece of candy or some biscuits to you. They're much stricter with the inspections now." "James." My sister's voice was muffled. "You don't have to do this." "Do what?" "Be kind to me." Nina's voice had a hint of strength, something I never expected to hear from her given her state. Then again, she had always had a quiet strength in her, even when we were little. "James, the more you're kind to me, the more it hurts. The more it hurts when others hurt me." "Nina, we've talked about this before. It's no one's fault but theirs." Nina kept sobbing. "It's not your fault, okay? None of this is. As I've said, the more you blame yourself, the easier they get away with it. And look how far you've come. Every time you are kind to yourself, rain starts pouring hard again." Thunder began to rumble, not far away. "It's not just me. We're a tandem. The gods aren't as powerful as you think, and neither is my dad." He squeezed her hands. "Listen, Nina. We're almost there. Your sister knows everything." "Dina?" Her voice trembled. Even from far away, I could see her face light up. How did she know? Who told her? That was when I realized that James and Nina were looking directly at me. "We're being watched," James muttered. He marched towards the butterfly camera. The last thing I saw and heard was his foot crushing it to the ground. Part 5. There was static, and then everything turned black. But I had more than enough. I clicked end recording and transferred the file to an empty USB stick. While it was downloading, I rang up Lucy. "Oh, Dina," she said. "It takes 5 hours for the camera's battery to drain. Please tell me it didn't malfunction." "No, it was destroyed," I explained. "And that's actually a good thing. Listen. I know who the imposter is." "Who?" Lucy said. "But were you able to capture them on cam?" "Yes," I said. "It was." "Wait a second, Dina," Lucy cut in. "I can hear something. Keep quiet for a while." There was a low, humming noise. just under our voices. We're being wiretapped, Lucy told me. Then I'll have to tell you my plan somewhere else, I said. Nina's Haven? Nina's Haven was a spot in a more obscure park, the nearest one to the border of the Salome Highway. It was also right across the sports complex where I had volleyball training with my team thrice a week after class. After school, while I was there with my friends, Nina and Lucy's group would be playing in the park. There was a tall metal arch with tangling vines and small flowers and a bench underneath where Nina and Lucy would sit and hang out, pretending to be fairy queens. It was Nina who came up with the idea, and that was why the Haven was named after her. Good idea, Lucy said. When? The same time we met earlier today, plus 2 hours. Those who were listening to us right now had no idea when that would be, or where Nina's Haven was. I need to talk to someone before telling you what to do. Okay. Let's cut the conversation now before we reveal too much. I spent the entire night sleepless, watching the skies through my window. Every time it thundered, every time lightning cracked through the painfully dark sky, I felt a little surge of hope. It meant that Nina was alive, and hanging on. Morning arrived, and it was sunny again. I went out without telling my parents and walked to the plaza, where I waited on the same bench. I assumed that it was James' usual jogging spot, and it was. I blocked his path when I saw him. He took out his earpods. You okay, Dina? I dropped my voice to a whisper. I know your secret. James looked to his left and right. A group of teenagers roller skated past us, laughing and hollering. He glanced toward a row of trees in the near distance. Let's go there, he said. It's private enough without looking suspicious. I had the USB stick in my pocket. Before I left, I tried uploading the video to my cloud drive, but the file was too large. I gave up eventually. The USB stick was my only hope. I followed James. I have a plan, we said at the same time. You first, I said. No, you first, he insisted. All right, I said, but what made you decide to disobey your dad? What would you get out of it? How could you stay decent in a town full of monsters? When I turned 18 last year, James answered, my dad told me everything. He told me about the deals and sacrifices he made for different towns. He told me about the magic he holds, or once held. His power is diminishing. That's why it's taking so long for your sister to die. During his experience, sacrifices usually die 3 or 4 years after the deal. Your sister spent 9 years in that basement. He took that as a sign from the gods that he needed a successor. So he told me that I would handle the next town meeting, and that I had to do it soon before a big calamity strikes again. How soon? I asked. Within the year, he said. The moment the next sacrifice is chosen, your sister will die. He ordered the bishop to kill her himself, right after the choosing rite. Then immediately after that, the deflowering and the initiation rite with the new sacrifice's parents. The initiation rite is supposed to sever any emotional bond. I know. I had to interrupt him, before I could get triggered by the mental image of what my parents had done to my sister. James, you've got to help me. I was the one who was watching you and Nina last night. It was me and another girl whose name I won't mention to protect her. We came up with the plan to capture everything on cam and expose it to the internet. James frowned. There's a reason why that hasn't worked, he said. Several people have tried, after discovering the secret about Nina. There's a reason why cellular data doesn't really work here, even though our Wi-Fi is pretty fast for a town our size. Posts about the sacrifice or the deal immediately get flagged and taken down. Our internet connection also performs censorship activities. Also, the police know. Everyone nearby knows. Remember, they rely on us for seafood. But those who move out and try. Those who move out are followed. They die in road accidents most of the time. What's your plan? I asked, finally, playing with the USB stick in my pocket. I made a mental note to tell Lucy later to get out of Salome as soon as she could before anything happened to her. Because if anything happened to me or James, she'd know. Someone out there would know. Well, to answer your question earlier, I tried to accept my dad's logic. Nina was just one person, the rest of us would prosper, blah blah blah. But how could I enjoy the sunny skies, the trips to the shore, the festivals, when I knew that a girl was paying the price under my dad's instructions? I knew that every time I enjoyed, the more Nina suffered. So I decided to try abusing her myself. But I couldn't do it. I saw her, I broke down, and I apologized. And you know what she did? He paused. She comforted me, Dina. She thanked me for my kindness. So I told her that she was the purest spirit in the entire town. Which she is, I agreed. And she looked at me with a confused look on her face. She said that she was ugly and dirty, because everyone else told her that she was, among other horrible things. That's when I discovered the loophole. Nina basically controlled the weather. Every time she suffered, we would be happy. Every time she felt any semblance of kindness, it would start to rain. That night, it rained so hard, a ship almost sank. Nina was tortured even harder the following night. I had to witness it and laugh along, pretending to be one of them. I told them I would rape her if they just left me alone, and since I was the mayor's son, they obeyed me. I apologized to Nina and told her that she was as brave as I was weak. Slowly, Nina started to change. She began to open up to me, and I deduced from the currently unstable weather that she was starting to believe me. I told her that she needed to be angry with her abusers. I tried to convince her that it was not her fault that she was chosen. I made her repeat these mantras, until she began to believe them bit by bit. It continued to rain hard, randomly, even when I wasn't visiting her. Nobody had seen the loophole in the deal, apparently. That the sacrifice could actually start being kind to herself and make everyone else suffer. Wow, I said. Talk about the ultimate reverse Uno card. Yes, he said. Now, let's talk about my plan. We met Lucy at Nina's Haven, and then James himself drove Lucy out of Salome and to a relative who lived halfway from her university in our town. I joined the ride with them, and we went through the plan together. And when you guys give me the signal, I'll let them know. Immediately, promised Lucy. She had added something to the plan as well. After we dropped off Lucy, James called up his dad. Dad, he told the mayor, I was just visiting a friend. But you're right. We need to have a town meeting soon. How soon? I suggest tomorrow. Right beside him, I crossed my fingers. No problem, said James. Thanks, Dad. He put down his phone. We smiled. There will be a new sacrifice tomorrow, James said. And it'll be all the guilty, sadistic, and complicit adults of Salome. We reached our town. James dropped me off at my doorstep. I knocked and entered, then froze. The mayor was at my house with my parents. There you are, Dina, Mother said cheerfully. You're just in time for the mayor to explain the new initiation rites for siblings. Part 6, Final. Sit down, Dina, the mayor said, pointing to the sofa I sat on 9 years ago, when my parents told me that they had sacrificed my twin sister for the town. We'll only explain this once, so you better pay attention. That was when I noticed them, 2 guards in full gear, holding guns. They marched to the door and blocked my path. My parents stood together at the other side of the room, and I glared at them. If you think some stupid rite will take away the love I have for my sister, you're all wrong. The mayor laughed, and so did my parents. Your mother and father said the same thing, the mayor exclaimed. Now, look at them. It's just a one-time, big-time thing, Mother said softly. And then, it'll all be over. Please just cooperate, Dina. We're not asking you to do something as drastic as taking your sister's place. No, said the mayor. Instead, you'll have to stay in the basement with me, 2 guards, the bishop, and the sacrifice. The initiation rite will end as soon as you've made your choice. Then, at the town hall, the choosing rites for the next sacrifice will immediately begin. This was a huge stumbling block to our plans. I was thinking about how I was going to contact James or Lucy. Maybe, just maybe, something else could work. Dina, said the mayor, instead of the bishop, you will be the one to kill your sister. No, I said in a small voice. It doesn't matter whether or not you'd like to do it, the mayor said, still smiling. Don't worry. Your freedom won't be entirely curtailed. You'll be given a list of options on how to kill the current sacrifice. What if I refuse? Then the bishop will have to kill your sister after he kills you. The sacrifice dies, either way. But it's up to you whether or not you'll survive. I was looking at the kitchen window the entire time he was speaking. I made a run for it. The guards caught me, pinning me down. I felt something cool being pressed to my nose and mouth. Something soft and sweet smelling. Then everything darkened. The next thing I knew, I was on the floor of a dark basement. The bishop stood in one corner, alongside the mayor and 2 guards, though not the same ones who drugged me. My parents were gone. The first thing I asked was where they were. I'm surprised that you still cared about them, said the mayor. They're at the town hall with the rest of the adults, with James, waiting for your decision so that they can begin choosing the next sacrifice. I turned to the other corner of the room, where my sister lay spread-eagled on the bed, her hands and feet chained. She turned to her side. In the dim light that sifted through the window, I thought I caught her looking at me. Nina. I couldn't help it. I ran towards her, crying hard. I hugged her, apologizing over and over, for not knowing, for not doing anything, for abandoning her down there even though I was clueless about what was going on. I felt guilty, all the same, as if everything good that happened in my life from the age of 9 onwards was my fault. I felt the rustle of chains, and Nina lifting her finger to touch my cheek. "Dina," she whispered weakly. "I love you." I'm sorry. Nina, I really don't know what to do. But I can't do what they're making me do to you." I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Dina, you have 3 options," the bishop said. He gestured towards the chest at the foot of Nina's bed, where there were 3 things: a knife, a sword, and a noose. "You only have to choose one. We will wait just outside. Once you've made your decision, we will lead you to the town hall with us." I was holding Nina's thin, cold hand, squeezing it slightly. She looked directly at me. Her face was still gentle and beautiful, I thought, and full of purity and strength, despite her black eyes, bruises, and busted lip. Her eyes, though, were filled with tears. She looked so beaten up, broken down, helpless. I leaned down on her and kissed her bruised and sweaty forehead. An act of kindness. Thunder rumbled overhead, and we could hear the storm starting to brew. The bishop and the mayor were giving me warning glares. Then Nina spoke again. "I'm in so much pain, Dina," she said, her voice cracking. Please. I couldn't kill her. I knew then and there that I'd rather die with her than kill her." "Come closer," she whispered. I drew nearer. "When it's over," she said, "promise me to run." "What?" "Run," she said. "And don't look back." "Dina, do you want us to shoot you right now? You're taking too much time." The mayor scolded, barely heard over the thunder. I looked at him. I looked straight into his eyes, without flinching, without an inch of fear. Here was the man who brought my sister to her current, broken state. Here was the man who thought that an innocent child's suffering was worth the progress of an entire town. Here was the man who was willing to do it all again to another child. I had no mercy for him. I finally understood my sister, and chose the knife. With tears in my eyes, I held her hand tighter and poised the knife to her throat. I could feel the grins of the mayor, the bishop, and the guards. "I love you, Nina," I told my sister, and with a slash on her throat, I killed her. There was a horrible noise, the howling of wind and water, paired with the terrifying grumble of thunder. I kept my promise to my sister and ran, dropping the knife on the way, pushing past the astounded guards and mayor and bishop, sprinting up the stairs and nearly slipping several times as water came gushing rapidly down to the basement. I felt a hand pulling my wrist. James had barely dragged me out of the building just as the wind cracked its glass windows, and rainwater started flooding up the room, drowning everyone inside. James and I slammed the doors of his car shut. James locked it. We snapped on our seatbelts and watched as the windshield wipers tried to clear the view in vain. We drove. To our right, we could see the terrible storm unfolding, the lightning striking the tops of buildings in brilliant white flashes, exposing the enormous and billowing storm clouds, the rising waves of the ocean. "How are the kids?" "Everyone under 18 is at the Capitol basketball court uphill. Good thing I suggested they put them all there to make sure no one can escape." "Glad to hear that they're safe. And the town hall? Did you bolt them in?" "Yup, check twice if the bolts locked them in properly from the outside." "The bowl?" "Swap the one with names with the one containing blank slips of paper. At least, those parts of our plan pushed through." "Is there any way they can escape?" "With the doors bolted from the outside?" "No. There are windows with thick bars. Once the glass breaks, water will get in, but no one can get out because of the bars." "They'll drown." "They'll drown, all right." Slowly and agonizingly. There was silence. "Nina," I realized I was sobbing. "I killed Nina. I killed my sister, James. But she wanted me to. She wanted her suffering to end." "No use thinking of what could have been," James said. "By the looks of it, you gave Nina the happiness she deserved in her last moments. She's finally getting her revenge." We had stopped at a red light, and he switched on the car radio. We were bombarded with news reports of storms, whirlpools, and tsunamis taking place at the Salome seaside. "I feel guilty, too, for not rescuing her sooner," James said, as we started moving again. "For not burning down the town when I had the chance. But if there's one thing stronger than fire, it's water." I nodded. Then I rang up Lucy and told her everything. She told me that she had found contacts in the mainstream media who were willing to expose similar sacrifices in the towns the mayor had handled before. "This will literally bring a media storm," she said. "Pardon the term." She tried to laugh, but then she started crying. I'm so sorry, Lucy, it's not you, Dina. I would have done the same. Lucy wiped her tears. But it could have been us, you know? In that basement. Suffering for 9 years. I can't let that happen to another child, I can't. She sniffled. Nina was so brave. James and I slept at his mother's in the interstate. The next morning, it was sunny. For the first time in so long, we felt peace watching the sun and the calm weather. The sacrifice it took, for once, was justified. I do not know if I will ever return to Salome. It remains to be a ghost town, as far as I know, and no one dares to enter it unless to visit the shrine that was built in memory of Nina and other unwilling sacrifices. As predicted, the media frenzy was intense. For a while, it was difficult for me, Lucy, and James to keep our private lives. We all eventually finished college, me with a psychology degree, hoping to help abused children heal, Lucy with her journalism degree, and James with his criminology degree. He didn't care about politics. James stayed single, while Lucy and I married within a year of each other. Lucy and her husband had 3 kids, all boys. My husband Archie and I had twin girls, whom I named Nina Jane and Nina Joelle after my sister. We kept in touch, the 3 of us. We studied weather patterns, and took note when storms suddenly stopped somewhere. Then we would go on a road trip and flush another evil town from existence.